Welcome to the Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership Podcast. Subscribe now so you don't miss a drop of straight talk you can't get anywhere else. We discuss the whiskeys to drink, music to listen to, and what it really takes to be an effective leader. I'm your host, Galen Bingham, the leadership strategist. Tonight's guest, author, speaker, and revenue recovery specialist, Dee Bowden. Hey, what you drinking? So, and the other thing that you are uniquely qualified, because usually I get a lot of people who have the leadership chops, right? And they may have, just a little bit of touch of the whiskey chops, but you also have a pretty strong handle and passion for music and jazz in particular. We've heard about that already. Not only jazz, but smooth jazz, old school R&B, symphony, orchestras. It's like the full musical gambit. Where did this diverse taste in music come from?
High school. Well, number one, so high school. So my music teacher was Africa Lamb. She's the daughter of Roland Hayes. And so she taught me. And then my dad, loved music as well. And then, thankfully, one of the things, we always did was I always went to shows. I grew up going to the theater. I grew up going to the symphony. I grew up loving music. So yeah, I can go from big band to rock. I can do it all. It's, there's a couple of genres are not my thing, but I grew up loving this music. And then once I discovered music tells a story, just like art tells a story, just like jazz tells a story, they all tell a story. And here's the thing: everybody wants their story to be heard. So, for example, the symphony, when they put on a show, they're telling you a story. Usually, the conductor will come out and tell you this piece is blah 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 blah, and they tell you this, and they give you the little outline of what the story is, and then you can tell from the way the conductor is moving with the orchestra. When he wants to make a crescendo on a note. This part of the orchestra emphasizes that note. When he wants to, tone it down, he does this. And if you're paying attention to the program, you can tell just by following the story. You're like, okay, this is about to be really intense, or this is about to be really, serene, or this is about to be whatever. And that's what music does. Smooth jazz is the same thing. So like, Damien Escobar and Boney James and others that I have enjoyed. I've enjoyed watching them interact with the artist, with the audience, excuse me. They tell the story through their music. They'll come out and give you a quick snippet. Then they'll say, let me finish it up with this. And then they'll tell the story through the music. And you're like, you can find yourself in that. Most of us have a soundtrack of our lives. There's certain songs, I don't care how young or how old you are. You hear the song, you're like, oh my gosh, this takes me back to da 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 da. And you have the whole emotion, the feeling, all the things. And what are you doing? You're reliving that memory, that story. And that's what music does for you. Music helps you tell a story. So I've been fortunate to have had been trained by, like I said, Africa Lamb, but more importantly, to have been exposed to different types of music that helps me tell my story, because I'm not one dimensional. I happen to like a lot of different types of music.
Yeah. Now you've said story or storytelling. I lost count after 8. That's a really important element of business. How do you make the connection between the impact that music has had on you and your ability to understand, if not tell a story in business?
Oh, because you think about it, it's what was it? The Golden Girls. Picture it, Sicily. Da da da. No, but seriously, music has helped me tell the story because one, it energizes me. So when I look at business, especially when I'm looking at collecting the cash, I got to figure out the story. I jokingly say it this way: I figure out what had happened was because when the payments haven't come in, when the invoices are lost, when there's been some kind of dispute, there's a story behind that. Something or some things went wrong. You have to be really good at problem solving and backtracking into what happened. So day 1, we placed the order. Day 2, we entered the information. Day 3, we had a contract. Day 4, we did this. Day 5, we did that. But then here's the thing: after you do all those things, what's the next part of the story? The story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. But people need to know what happened in the middle. It's usually in the middle is where the problems are. But that's the art of being able to deal with the story in business is, okay, who's willing to get into the weeds, to pull back the curtain, to expose what hasn't worked, and then do what I talk about often is called course correct. And then when you learn how to do that through stories, people are like, oh, you're actually just trying to get to resolution, not to make us feel bad. Right. I'm trying to get to the resolution. The objective is never to make you feel bad. The objective is to get you to see where you are now, see yourself in the story, and flip it. If you were the customer on the other end of this story, would you want somebody to listen to you and get this to resolution? Absolutely. That's the approach I have, because I'm going from what had happened was to how do we win.
Oh my gosh. And and I love the framework that you've built your business on. And I heard this before and you've shared it with us already, but this four-step framework of decide, commit, focus, succeed. Talk a little bit more about not only the framework, but how that came to be a framework for you.
It's kind of funny. It was one of those where I just one day I would just kind of started. Somebody asked me, "So how do you do what you do?" And I thought I kind of started thinking about, okay, how did I collect $6 million? I did those four things. I decided, I committed, I focused, and succeeded. Now, of course, I have been collecting lots of money for a long time, so I already had a framework. I'm a practitioner at heart. I never thought about it until somebody said, "Well, how do you do what you do?" And I'm like, okay, I started off with a decision. I decided that I was going to be successful in doing this. And then I made a decision, and then my actions have to match that decision. The commitment, reading books, getting a framework, perseverance and persistence was one of them. So decide, commit, focus. Focus means, okay, for a short amount of time, we're going to spend some intense energy on getting this thing done. And then the success part was that I used the success as a framework from, okay, if you've been able to collect before for government agencies and other companies, all the things, it's the same thing here. It's just a different entity. Take the same energy that you used before and put it over here. Now, you have to learn a new system. You have to learn new terminology, but it's the same thing. And here's the thing. When you have success in one area, success leaves clues. Success always leaves clues. A lot of times what happens, I don't think people go back and get the clues. They just go, okay, we're successful. Great. But if you go back and take the notes, figure out, okay, what did you do? Because that's what everybody's looking for. That's the real story. They want to know, how did you do this? How did you change your mindset? What books did you read? What podcasts did you listen to? Who did you talk to, or who didn't you talk to? How did you decide to change, and how did you decide that that's what you want? And I was like, oh, well, for me, it was, okay, how can I make a difference? How can I serve? And I'm like, okay, I can serve doing this. And then it's like, all right, weave my story in and show you this is how I've gotten here. It's been a journey. It's been decisions. It's been investments. It's been, I want to get better. It's been remembering, oh yeah, you talk too fast. You got to slow down, take a breath, all the things. It's all the things, but it's seriously, it's that. And I think that how we get better is, number one, you have to understand this, your commitment is for the long haul. It is not just, 30, 60 or 90 days. It's long term. And then when you have to course correct, you get the coaching, you become teachable, you ask for the feedback, you take it in, you make the adjustments, then you get it back up and you try again. The reason that we celebrate leaders in business and in life is because they have made course corrections over time. And then what we're celebrating now is that them doing the work, in front of the camera, behind the scenes, et cetera. And then they show up again. You're like, oh, wow, they've really evolved. Well, yeah, their evolution has been an investment of time and energy and money, plus them saying, I'm going to decide, I'm going to commit, I'm going to focus, and I'm going to see myself as successful.
Again, I love the story. I love your approach. One of the things that I think we talked about earlier is that it's easy, to your point, it's easy to look at you now and say, wow, she's got it all together. It must have been easy. She didn't have any struggles. I've heard that phrase 100 times, that success leaves clues. I think also failure leaves clues. It's when we have the courage to stop and evaluate our failures that we find at least another way to do it, right? We
Oh,
we
yeah.
might not have the solution, but we'll find another way to approach it. Talk a little bit about what are some things that you've learned that turned out to be golden, but you learned them because that didn't work out. The way you did it before, that wasn't the answer. You adjusted, you found a better solution, but it was the clue from the failure that led you to the solution.
Sure thing. Ever been fired? Getting fired is a huge failure, because when you get fired, they're saying that the way you fit or don't fit into this organization doesn't work. But then you got to go back and say, okay, how did you contribute to this? So, for example, in my book, in Collect the Cash, I actually talk about, at the time I was working for a company, and they said, you don't know how to close out government contracts, and you don't know how to collect money. And I'm like, you're kidding, right? They're like, no, this is in I got fired. And I tell the story in the book. Now, when I first got fired, I was like, I got fired over something that I've been doing for a long time. And I'm like, you're saying I don't know how to do this. And I thought, okay. So getting fired made me sit down and look at, okay, what could you have done differently? And you do I'm old school, like the T-square. Okay, you start listing all the pros, all the cons. All right. Well, maybe there was something in the journey of collecting the cash at this company that I just missed. A lesson from that is, okay, next time if this comes up again, let's make sure you understand the entire process, because I feel like there might have been a step that I missed there. And I'm like, okay, I don't think I missed it. I personally don't think I missed a step, but hey, they said it, you got to go. All right, fine. But what it also taught me, that failure, what it made me do was, okay, let's not end up here again. This lesson will not be repeated. We're not going to be here again. And what it did do is it inspired me to get better at what I do. And then I went on to go on and do that for government agencies and all the things. And then from that birth, collect the cash, and from that birth, all the other things. But the firing made me sit down and evaluate, okay, what could you do better? Maybe you're not going to do collections in this arena, but it's not that you can't collect. You may not be successful in this area. You got to go find out, take the firing, take the lesson. All right, you don't do well here, but where do you do well? And for me, I found out that I do really well in government agencies, in IT, in telecom, and software companies. I was like, oh, okay, fine. That's your sweet spot. Go build your success there. And in retrospect, I was actually able to say, not out loud, but to say out to myself, you know what? I'm glad that I actually went through that experience, because it made me go dig in and learn some things. And now out of that has come collect the cash and all the things. But I probably would have never said I want to do something different had that not happened to me.
Yeah. Wow. Very often I suspect that the natural inclination is, this job didn't work out with this company. Let me go find another company so I can do something similar with another company. What told you that it was time to invest in D as opposed to investing in joining another company? What told you that it was time to build a structure for yourself and call it collect the cash?
So what happened was, number one day I started thinking about legacy, and I don't have kids. So I'm like, okay, besides being a great employee, what else are people going to be able to say about you? And then there was what happened to me at that company. And I'm like, okay, how can we start this journey? And I didn't start it immediately. To be honest, I didn't want to start it because I was like, I'm not really sure that I'm cut out to be a business owner. I'm really good, in the employee land. I got that on lock. But now you're talking about, going back to school, go back to learn about business and sales and marketing and all the things, and actually, create this structure. And then it's not just creating the structure, it's the personal development that has to happen in me, because the business only grows to the degree that I grow. And if I don't grow, it's not growing.
Wait, hold up. Run that back.
Yeah, I said, the business only grows to the degree that I grow. And the thing is, like I said, I created the business, I've got the, established and all the things, but the business was not going to grow to the degree that I grew. So I had to decide that, okay, if we're going to create this entity, what is it going to do? It literally started off with, okay, you like to solve problems. That was the first thing. And then I'm like, okay, you like to solve problems. You like working, you work for small companies. You've enjoyed that. Well, how can you serve? Well, do you know what service looks like from this perspective? Not really. But then I had to go back and get books and learn and take classes and say, okay, this is what I want to do. And I had to be willing to test it out, to come out and share my story, share on podcasts, talk about this, get feedback, and say, okay, your heart is service, and service tied to making money to serve small business owners, and go, okay. So, and with that came, originally it came out with, okay, I'm just going to go collect money. That was it. And then it was like, no, we're going to switch that. We're going to switch it from just collecting the money to let's serve. And then how can you serve? You can teach, you can train, you can consult, you can create a product and service and other things that can make a difference. And I also have to give credit to my book coach, because my book coach is the one who said, Dee, we are your why. Your heart is for small business owners. And because you want us to win, you're writing this book and creating all these things. So we have something to go to. You're creating a resource. And I was like, and I'll be honest, in the beginning, I didn't see that. If she was on here, she would say right now, I didn't see what she saw. But here was the thing. I was willing to tell my story. And when she heard my story, she said, Dee, I'm one of your clients. I could be, because I need to know how to collect the cash from people that I work with, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh. And she was like, we're your why. And once she gave me the framework to see it as more than just collecting the cash, but no, Dee, you're creating legacy for small business owners long after you're not here. I said, oh, so that's what I'm doing. It's bigger than me.
Yeah, talk a little bit about your book because people write books for different reasons, and I know that it's a big part of your legacy.
Mhm.
Again, there has to be a point where you decide now is the time to write the book. In my family, everyone's been talking about writing a book for the past 30 years. I think I was the first one in my family to actually say, today is 30 years. Today
Yeah,
is the 30-year mark
yeah.
point. We're going to make this happen. How did you decide that now was the time to write your book?
Well, what happened, Galen, was this. One day I think I was watching the news and I was sitting, it was dramatic, it was during COVID. One of the first things that did kind of triggered it was as I said earlier, I love theater. So when Broadway shut down, I saw my story all over again. What happened to me? I saw Broadway shut down, which means every theater that was tied to Broadway shut down. Every theater is a business which has contracts with vendors to sell tchotchkes, t-shirts, all the things. And I'm sitting there thinking, man, they're not going to be able to do this, which means the people that had those sales projections, they were expecting, all the shows Tuesday, whatever the schedule was, all the shows that were scheduled were now stopped, which means no sales, which means no revenue, which means no cash flow, which means they're not making money. But nobody was talking about it. And I kept saying, So I watched that. Then I saw the sports teams, everybody, they weren't playing. I'm sorry, they were playing, but all the vendors that had contracts to sell the food, the things. So I'm just watching my story over and over and over again. I'm like, And then my book coach, I think she did a Facebook Live, and she kept saying, you can write a book in 90 days or less. And I thought she was kidding. I was like, yeah, no way you can do that. She was like, no, I'm serious. You can write a book in 90 days or less. I'm like, no, you can't. And she's like, no, you can't. I'm like, no, you can't. So we did double dutch. And so what happened was I went to one of her webinars and I listened to her present the idea of writing a book in 90 days, but she was talking about basically having the framework of the story. You're not going to write the entire book in 90 days, but you're going to have a framework. And then she talked about how the book can become a business and how they do all these things. And we talked and we played double dutch. If you know anything about double dutch, we in and out, in and out, in and out. And finally she won, which is how come there is a collective cast to the book today. And she heard my story. And then she was able to get me to talk about why I love doing what I do. And then how I can do this as a part of service and a part of legacy and it's a great way to make sure that I leave something behind. And when she gave me that, I was like, okay. And then, here's the thing. I started out in the beginning. I'm like, I'm not sure about this. I'm not, because here was the question. Who's going to want to learn about collecting outstanding invoices? She was like, plenty of business owners. And I'm like, but they already have people that do that. She said, Dee, there is nobody talking to small business owners about this the way you do. And we need your voice. And she just kept saying, we need your voice. I need you to keep working on this. And then eventually, as I talked about earlier, as my business grew, as I grew, my business grew. Well, as I grew, so did collect the cash. And that's why we're here today talking about this.
Wow, I love your story, and you're actually bringing to life something else that I shared with a client. You basically said it, and that is you've got to find that thing that if you don't do the way only you can do it, it might
Yes.
leave a hole in the universe. And so many people will ask, what would you do for free? Well, I have, and I would do a lot of things for free.
Hmm.
But there's only one thing that if I don't do it the way I do it, it might leave a hole in the universe.
Yeah.
And I am just so excited that you found that thing for you. I gotta bring you into the VIP room because that's where the real business owners live. Plus, we've given away way too much for free, right? And I know you appreciate we gotta save some of these gems for the folks who are investing in this knowledge. What's something that you'd want to leave our audience on this side of the velvet rope? And how can people get a hold of you if they want to learn more about how to collect the cash?
Sure thing. Well, first of all, I want to leave you with a moment of gratitude. Thank you so much very much for having me on here for Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership. That's the first thing. Second thing is this. Whether you have a business, you want to be in business, or you're like, I'm still kind of struggling with it. Here's the thing. Don't give up. Don't give up. There's power in perseverance. As a matter of fact, I think it's one of the 11 or 12 principles from Think and Grow Rich. Yeah, Think and Grow Rich. And one of the keys is perseverance. Nobody who has ever accomplished anything great has gotten there because they gave up. What they did was they started, they fell down, they made mistakes, they course corrected, they got back up. They might have rebranded, whatever they needed to do, but they kept going. The reason we celebrate people who are great today is because they started something, they kept going. Yeah, it got hard. Yes, it got challenging, all the things, but then they said, okay, I want to see me win. As a business owner in life and in business, you got to see yourself winning. And what winning looks like for you, you have to decide that. So you got to decide, commit, focus, and succeed, and see yourself winning. I want to see you in the winner's circle. That's what I leave with you. So part 2, how do you get your book? How do you get the book, Collect the Cash? Please visit www.collectthecash.biz/book. That's www.collectthecash.biz/book.
It is absolutely worth checking out. If it has any hint of the personality that Dee has, any hint of the commitment and focus that Dee has, it's going to be worth your having. I'm a small business owner as of right now. It's growing. My business is growing. I need to check out how to collect the cash to make sure that I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to be doing. And I think I know exactly where to get that insight. So thank you so much. If you got a few more minutes, I want to bring you into the VIP room. I think my VIPs are going to absolutely love you. Raise your with your grandma yay?
Yes.
Raise your glass. And until next time, cheers.
Cheers.
Hey, it's not too late. Hit that subscribe button so you're sure to catch the next episode. If you're really enjoying the vibe, leave us a review or become a VIP for guest and show exclusives. Cheers.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.